Hello, this is Rockadillin, and this is a relatively new Chaos Chosen team. It is only their third game, and they are facing Dark Elves. We have one Beastman with block, and not much else. Let's see how we do. And we did not win the toss, which is fine. I would have picked to receive in the first half anyway, get a couple hits on these guys, hopefully score late in the half, and give them not very much time to score back. So they've offset their line, so I'm just matching them at this time, getting someone in the back, making sure we have a screen so they can't easily get to our ball carrier. Just trying to maximize our hits here in the first turn. Hopefully, maybe get a couple lucky armor breaks and making sure the ball is safe. At this point, I'm thinking of going right because the two furthest linemen are kind of out of the play. So if I can shift to the right a bit, I might be able to overpower them just a little bit. And got a lucky removal there, so I was pretty happy with that. On a blitzer nonetheless with dodge. So at this moment, I'm not necessarily too concerned with pushing up the field a whole bunch and actually choosing a side. I'm more just trying to keep them off balance a bit and make sure that the ball is still safe, but I'm kind of giving myself options on which direction I want to go. So there hasn't been a complete breakdown yet in their defense structure, so I'm not wanting to commit too heavily either side. The ball was safe, so I wasn't too concerned with taking the both down there and conserving the rerolls. That was probably an oversight on my part, leaving him kind of exposed on that left side. I should have probably brought a partner up to him or brought him back a little bit further. At this point, with that both down, I noticed that the right side was a little bit weaker, and I had more players on this side that I could bring in for support. Now that was a bit of a mistake, putting that first cage corner in. I probably should have left that one open so that I could maneuver a little bit easier, but it all worked out. That was not in the cards for me. I was hoping that he would be able to, at worst, be knocked down and get stunned, but a nice lucky armor break on a double 6, then on a 10, he was out for the game. At this point, I'm still kind of committed to this right side, so I believe in the next turn I keep pushing down here. That was a nice removal. I was glad to have. Didn't necessarily need it, but was definitely helpful. At this point, I'm kind of breaking through on this right side, but wanting to shore it up a little bit, make sure that that ball is a little bit more secure. Here I use a reroll, which I definitely wanted to make sure I had so that that top part of that cage wasn't exposed. At this point, I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm actually going to stall for one more turn. Dark Elves are notorious for being able to score with even just a couple turns left. So whether or not my next move here was the appropriate one, it's debatable, but I didn't feel like I had the position or the strength to be able to get them tied down for even one more turn. So I went ahead and took the score. In retrospect, this next setup that I had done was not the best against Dark Elves, considering I left, well, you'll see here in a moment, I left an entire right side completely open. I probably, if I had to do this again, would change into a chevron formation, angled out, cutting off both flanks so that it would be harder just to get through. So at this point, it's I'm just trying to get enough men in front of the ball so that it makes it more difficult for them to score, because at this point I'm thinking, okay, they're probably already going to score. So I'm just trying to make sure that I get some men into some positions to be able to do this appropriately. And again, in retrospect, I probably should not have followed up that blitz. That should have probably been left and staggered the screen I have down here a little bit lower, closer to the end zone. So, this is what I was talking about earlier. They scored in 2 turns, so this made it a tied game going into our 8th turn, which not ideal, to say the least. So on this turn, what my goal was to maximize the amount of hits and possibly foul something, so we might be able to go into the next half with them at least having even teams if my KO doesn't come back. So I'm trying to make sure everything's 3 dice here. Didn't work out in this regard. And I tried doing 3 dice on the other side as well to make sure that we just have some safety in there, since these guys don't have block yet. So neither one of those worked the way I would like. So I blitzed with my block Beastman and was happy with that removal. And here I'm just trying to farm some star player points by passing to one of my other beastmen. So we're going to be kicking to the elves, the dark elves, in the second half. And we're both tied up, so I have to be really careful with my positioning in this half, making sure that I'm applying the correct amount of pressure, but wanting also to make sure that everything is in front of me. I was especially careful to make sure nothing was getting behind my players and that I wasn't being too aggressive initially and keeping some open players. Because once Dark Elves get behind you, it's really difficult to get out in front of them again. This is these opening blocks kind of raised an eyebrow for myself. Realized they were playing more aggressively and getting, in my opinion, way too much contact with the style that these Dark Elves usually play. And seeing that aggression, I realized that it might be able to bait them into more conflict. So that's when my mentality kind of shifted here, and I was like, okay, trying to get some quality blocks, maybe a couple removals, and maybe we can get some dice on the ball. So at this point, we're one player up on the Dark Elves, which they're so agile that that one player doesn't necessarily make or break their team. But again, I'm being very careful to selectively hit certain Dark Elves and when to apply the pressure, and making sure that I'm not just standing players unnecessarily in base contact with them. So here's where I'm applying a little bit more pressure. I wanted to get a hit on that elf standing next to the witch elf with my block beastman, but I wanted to keep a couple safeties in the backfield, just for any breakthroughs that might occur. And this warrior on the right side is doing a decent amount of his share, just trying to tie up a couple players with one. So this player is continuing to be pretty aggressive with their Dark Elves, which is fine, but it also means that there's a lot more opportunity for Chaos to take advantage of this aggression. And right here, I noticed that if I filled in this bottom square, I could get a chain push and get my block beastman onto the ball carrier and get 2 dice on the ball. And so I used my Chaos Warrior to chain push that beastman right onto the ball carrier. And there was an assist, so I needed to push these guys in to take away the assists, but then I could blitz ball carrier, and I'm pulling in my safety a little bit. Had to reroll this, but was able to get the both down result and get their ball carrier down. So at this point, I didn't have a good clear path to getting to the ball. However, I was trying to disrupt their formation more than anything and get the ball loose if I could. Here, that aggression again kind of bit them in the rear end, because that witch elf doesn't have block, and it was 2 dice into 1 dice, and so it was not ideal for them to throw that block. I got a good bounce on the ball. Came back here, and if I had to do this sequence again, I would have changed what I had done. That ball's not safe, so I would have moved a couple players to try and make it more secure before I threw any of those blocks. So they get my ball carrier down, and the ball goes out, scatters into their backfield. At this point, there's only 1 elf that is free, and really they should have probably picked that ball up and ran further away, because this just left an opportunity for me to get a couple players on the ball and possibly even pick it up, depending on how the dice rolls went. So once this blitzer goes down, I resolved myself to attempting to actually pick up the ball with one of my beastmen in the backfield and try and scoot towards the right side of the field. I have the rerolls for it, so I figured at this point, if I didn't go for that level of risk, then it's either a draw or a loss. So I went ahead and took that risk. And Nuffle was kind to me here, giving them a 1 on that dodge, so I was able to get 3 dice on this witch elf, and then scamper off towards the right side of the field again, further out of danger. So that block was just so I could free up my warriors, so I could make it harder for the witch elf to just cut through there. And these dodges were just so I could attempt to try and get a couple of them more free. I knew that if they had failed any of these dodges, I was not going to reroll them. Another failed dodge there again. They used their rerolls earlier in this half, and so anything that's a failed is just going to be disaster for them in a turnover. This is where I wish I had probably taken a different result on the dice. I'm not sure how much it would have changed things, but I was attempting to get 3 dice on the witch elf again, and I realized too late I didn't have enough players to actually make it 3 dice on the ball. So on the witch elf. So what I should have done is just take that dodge, or that defender stumbles, and pushed the witch elf back 1 more square, just so that it was a bit harder for her to do what she's about to do now, even though I went ahead and took it. So I took the both down here to cause a turnover immediately, rather than risk the potential for her surfing me and having the ball go out. I knew I had the reroll to try and pick it up. Sure enough, I needed it at the end. But that was kind of a calculated risk. Approximately 88% that you'd pick up that ball with a reroll. So I figured a both down wouldn't be bad. Plus, I had a second beastman there that could have fulfilled that pickup as well. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.